Good morning, Chavra. Morning, Yos.
Morning, Rabbi.
Morning.
All right, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
Hi, Yaakov.
Dan.
Hey, Yaakov.
Hi, Rabbi. Boker Tov.
Boker Tov. You sleeping anything, Yaakov?
I got a solid 4 hours last night.
Wow, yeah.
I feel like a champ.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember those years. Who knows? I think I'm still young. Maybe another one is coming.
There's Rat Hashem. Hey, Rabbi, you always told me that when you had your first kid, like you had a little trouble keeping in the minyan. Second one. And now I can really relate to that. It's very hard for me to get to the minyan of this.
Mamish. It's hard to wake up. All right, good.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chavra. Oh, today is so good, guys. Mamish gewaldig.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Huh?
I'm back.
Yes.
I missed you guys. All of these pages, I was struggling by myself.
Well, the sugyas that we're learning now, I mean, this is even before the Matan Torah, is gewaldig. We don't have an opportunity to learn this that often. All right, Chavra, it's mamash feilach. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Pei Hey. We started at the end of yesterday's shiur, the sugya of Kilayim. Before we even give an intro to Daf Pei Hey, to today's Daf, I want to speak out just a few things. Firstly, we quoted Rashi in the Mishnah Daf Pei Daled Amud Beis that says explicitly that kilei zeroim, which means mingling seeds of different species of plants, is something that's only asur midrabanan, state in Rashi, with the exception of klei hakerem, which is planting grapes together with two other species, as the Rambam explains. It's important to know that Rashi, in other places in Shas, writes otherwise, writes that planting kilei zeroim is asur midoiraisa. This is a big challenge. Tosfos writes in one place that because of this contradiction, that Rashi writes elsewhere, I think it is in Tamura, that kilei zeroim is asur midoiraisa. Listen to this. It must be that Rashi, Shabbos Pei Daled Amud Beis, is a corrupted Rashi. Rashi never wrote that. Imagine, ad kedei kach. There are some achronim that want to leave Rashi in its place, and they say the following. This is a very important rule. Based on Shitas Rambam, that even by planting a vineyard together, the isid is only if you plant a grape seed with two other seeds, bimma poilas yad, meaning throwing these three together at the same time. So they suggest the following, that when Rashi writes elsewhere that planting different seeds of vegetables is asur midoiraisa, that's if you plant these two seeds at the same time. B'ma poilas yad. Here, Rashi on Shabbos Daf Pei Daled, if you planted first one seed and then you planted another seed, b'chlal, in all cases of plantings, Rashi will hold that it's only asur midrabanan. That's a very important klal. Bishitas Rashi. Another important introduction to the introduction, that after we finished learning here on Chabad.org, now that we're Zooming, so many people right away brought up the challenge that many of us have in our backyards here in Los Angeles, and other peoples that have land, vegetable patches. and we're not familiar with the need of keeping them apart, as we have been learning 3 tfachim, because as we said, every seed derives nourishment from a tefach and a half. So if you have 2 different seeds, you have to have the minimum of 3 tfachim. So in Yoredeya, Siman Reish Sadik Zayin, which is the Siman in Shulchan Aruch that deals with Kilei Zeroyim, we paskin that ein Kilei Zeroyim b'chutz la'aretz. Very important rule, that outside Eretz Yisrael, there is no, not even on a rabbinic level, a prohibition of mingling. We're speaking not about a vineyard, we're speaking about Kilei Zeroyim, different types of vegetables or herbs. So everyone should rest assured that if you have in your house, or if you know people that plant all different types of vegetables or herbs, b'chutz la'aretz, there is no problem at all. So we paskin of planting them together. And again, now we're going to just repeat one important klal that we learned yesterday, and we will continue to see. And this will play itself out in many topics of Daf Pehei, that when it comes to kalayim, of planting seeds together, it's not only about are they deriving nourishment from the same patch of land or not. Even if they do, if they don't look like they're mingled, if there is no marasayan, or quoting the words of Rashi for the first time on Daf Pei Daled Amud Beis in the Mishnah, that hekeda hu debainan, if there's no hekeda, then there's not a problem. And that's huge. And as we will learn today, Gavaldik Chevre, this is an opportunity for people that learn Yerushalmi. They spend a lot of time. There's a lot of Gemara on the Seder of Zeroyim, and it's mamish moededik. You spend mamish a very long amount of time learning all these dinim. In Talmud Bavli, let's begin with this rule that ein kilei zeroyim b'chutz la'aretz, being that trumas and maasros are not noig b'chutz la'aretz, certainly not in the countries that are far away from Eretz Yisrael. So these dinim are much less relevant to us. So we spend a lot less time learning it. First of all, we proudly are following the Rebbe's instruction of learning the daily Rambam. Here we do have an opportunity to learn the entire Torah, including all these dinim. But learning Gemara, I should savor today's daf, because it's not that often that we're going to have a whole hour spent on learning these dinim of Kalayim. Now, we're going to begin today with a rule that is actually negaya to the current events. We're right now in Sivan, Tavshin Pei, and there is sadly this terrible coronavirus, and a lot of decisions have to be made relying on scientific or medical input. And there's going to be, the Gemara is going to ask a question that when Chachamim don't have a Mesorah from Sinai regarding any type of mitzias, like we're learning over here, that when you plant 2 seeds together, they have to be 3 tfachim apart, right? Because if they are closer than that, then they are, each one, like we said, each one nourishes from the land around it a tefach and a half. So if you plant 1 seed and another seed, let's say within 2 tfachim, even if you didn't plant them together, in Israel, at least midrabanan, if they look like they are mingling, then you have an isur. How do you know that shiur? The Chachamim didn't get it from Sinai. Elama, they are relying on what they heard from the scientists of their time, or relying on what the prior generations heard from the scientists of their time. Is that a derech? That's a gavaldika question. And the Gemara is going to tell us Shabbos Pehei, yes, that's the way it works. That if we have a Mesorah from Sinai regarding any type of mitzias, even if scientifically, I'm just adding this on my own, it looks differently, who cares? If Hashem said that, then that's the way it is. But if we don't have a Mesorah regarding any medical or scientific, biological, or any other mitzias of Olam Hazeh, then we are obligated to follow the Chachamim of our times. Oh, that's Shabbos Daf Pehei. We're going to learn about the concept of the walkway that people would commonly leave around vegetable patches, which makes a lot of sense. So we have been learning this klal that if you want to plant many seeds in the same patch, so if you have a 6x6 tefach patch, so we learned in the Mishnah, based on the rules, that you can plant 5 different types. 5 different types, right? 1 on each edge, and then one row on each edge, and then 1 little dot in the center, as we explained in the Mishnah when we finished learning that yesterday. Now, the question will be, hold on, what happens if you want to have many patches, one adjacent to the other? And here the question is that there is a walkway. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it. If every patch has its own walkway, we're going to determine how wide were the walkways today. It was 1 tefach wide. If every patch has its own walkway, so between one patch and the other, you're going to have 2 tefachim. 2 tfachim is not 3 tfachim. So we're really going to learn a machlokes whether that in itself will allow you to plant each patch to the maximum capacity of the Mishnah, even though the row of one patch and the row of the other patch, the parallel rows, right? We don't care about perpendicular rows, but we care about parallel rows will be within 2 tfachim. Why might it be permissible? Because by the very fact that they are separate patches, so they look separate, there is no akeda. Now, this concept, everyone applies when it comes to a field, as we'll learn on Daf Pehei Amud Beis, quoting a lot of Mishnahs from Kalayim. But a field is different. A field is much larger. And when you have 2 separate fields, the heked between one and the other is stronger, is greater, not because there's necessarily more distance between one and the other, but simply by the fact that it's a large area for one type and another large area for another type. If there was some sort of physical demonstration that they're 2 separate fields, that for sure will allow people to plant all the way to the edge of their fields, even if it comes within 3 tfachim. Question will be whether you apply that between one patch and the other. And ultimately, we're going to learn on Daf Pehei a moide dike Rabbi Yochanan, which is very rare. When we learned the Mishnah yesterday, and you can look inside the picture in Nashi, which is very important to remember the klal, right? So when the Mishnah says that if you have a 6x6 patch, you can plant 5 different types of seeds because you're planting a row on each edge and they're going in different directions, right? And then you plant in the center 1 seed because the one in the center will be distant from each one of the 4 sides with the 3 tfachim which are needed. Says Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan gives us a different formulation. He's not adding to the number of types. In 6x6, you can only plant 5 types. But Rabbi Yochanan is going to make much more usage than this configuration that we have in Rashi. Because in the configuration of Rashi, don't forget, the whole center of your patch, you're leaving fallow. You're not using that land. Rabbi Yochanan has a better way. Question is, first of all, Rabbi Yochanan is not going against the Mishnah. The question will be, why didn't the Mishnah give that option? Now, as we'll speak out, God willing, when we come to the end of today's daf, perhaps the words of Rabbi Yochanan don't go against what it says in the Mishnah. You can actually learn that pshat in the Mishnah, but braises that are normally and are more elaborate, the braises don't appear to be allowing any option other than the option in the Mishnah. And we're going to have to figure out how do we reconcile the solution of Rabbi Yochanan, which seems to be a much better solution versus the initial understanding in the Mishnah, and clearly a shita and the braisa that, yeah, you can plant 5 different types, but you're stuck with planting only 1 row on each edge, and then only 1 seed in the center, because that seed is taka distant from either direction, the 3 tfachim. Another, just to reiterate, when we learned yesterday, and Rashi, I know by us, the picture in the Rashi, I know that people that have the newer Gemaras have much better pictures, realize that the rows go almost, the rows on the sides, they go almost from one edge to the other edge. Actually, when I said yesterday that they can't touch each other, that was a misstatement. The corners of the rows could touch each other, because whenever you have 2 rows that are not parallel, they are perpendicular, even if the edges physically touch each other, since it doesn't look like they're being intermingled, there's vitamin no kilayim issue. So even in our older Gemaras, when you look inside the Rashi, you'll see that the little inner corners are physically touching each other, and that's fine. You can't have them go all the way to the end, because if they're going to go all the way to the end, like I look inside your picture in Rashi, if the one to the right would go all the way up, then that final tefach, they will be parallel. Part of it will be parallel, even though the bigger line is perpendicular. But as long as they don't enter the space of the other, even if the corners touch, again, it's good. Okay, let's start. We left off on Daf Pehei Amud Aleph, 2 lines from the top of the Amud. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shahar kol nidbar. Says the Gemara, Minolon dohod kimluhu l'rabanan. Wow. This concept of 3 tfachim, really meaning a tefach and a half on in every direction from a seed, which means if you have 2 seeds, you need to have the 3 tfachim. And they did not hear this. This is not a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. This is not part of the Masorah. God says, don't mix them together if they look mixed. the rule that if they don't even look like, that got taught. But if there isn't a heked, so there is a matasayan, what we have from God is don't mingle them. Okay, but what is the shiur? So where did they determine it from? They must have relied upon the scientific knowledge of a certain time. The question is, how do you know milsihi? How do you know that's reliable? This line, I don't know if there was another time that the Gemara asked such a question. I don't remember, could be, but this is a very, very important line in the Gemara. Because indeed, think about our matzav, like we mentioned, and many others, so much other in the Shulchan Aruch, even just when it comes to medicine, relies on medical advice. And based on that, you paskin halachas. How do you know? Where do we have a hint in the Torah that that's the way to go? Not that we have another option, but where do we have that? God must have told us that that's the way to go. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you from where we know in the Torah alludes to a lot of our application of halachas that are dependent on scientific knowledge that we are obligated to follow the knowledge of the time you live in. Or if it was already established in a prior generation, until proven otherwise, then we rely on what our forefathers told us, even though that they didn't hear it from God, they heard it from secular sources. The Amar Rab Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yechanan, it's hinted to a pasuk in Parsha Shoftim. The pasuk says, "Leisasik gevul reyacho." Do not move the boundary of your neighbor. Literally, it means pashut. Me and you are neighbors. And there was a siman that showed where my property ends, where your property begins, and neither neighbor can, God forbid, be a ganif by when no one is watching, move the boundary. That's the literal. But then the Torah adds words that appear to be superfluous, if that's only the pshat. Asher govlu rishonim. If don't move the boundary, means that the earlier one marked out. Pshita, of course. Why did the Torah have to write these words? Say leisasik v'oreyacha. Muzayin, that there is another deeper meaning to that. We're not speaking about physical boundaries. Meaning, gvul shegavul rishonim loisasik. That if there was a prior boundary, meaning a certain rule that we did not hear Misinai, but we heard it either from the current scientists or prior generations, they made the inquiry, and therefore they were already they already put into practice halachas based on the knowledge then. So if it was already established, don't change it. Now, obviously, if certain decisions are made based on scientific knowledge, if that science changes, as it always does, if the knowledge evolves and therefore certain premises change, then anything that resulted from an earlier position will have to change. Not being allowed to move it means give credence to it. Don't say, how did they know that? They heard it from the chachmei of that generation, so what, it's not Torah? Don't do that, says God. And my gobel rishonim, and you know what this is referring to specifically? It's amazing. The remez in the Torah is about agriculture. We're not saying that it's only to be used by agriculture. It's used everywhere. The Rambam himself, who writes, who he was the first one that wrote the Soid HaIbor, right? The whole chachma that we learned a few daf ago of the kufas and the mazoles and the mitzvah we have to learn it, v'chulei, v'chulei. The Rambam himself writes that he got it from Chachma Yavan. Even though Chachma Yavan there, they got it from the Chachma Yisrael. This is a Chachma that came from God, and God gave it to us. But as the Rambam writes, our Chachamim taught it to the world, and because of Galus, there was a time that we lost full knowledge, and we needed to relearn it from Chachma Yavan. And based on that, the Rambam writes a whole Seder Kiddush HaChodesh, many pieces of information not coming directly through our Messiah. But here again, so it's applied to all areas of knowledge. In the Torah, the remez in the Torah, boundary of land is speaking about agriculture, agricultural science. And Amar Shmuel bar Nachman Rabbi Yonasan or Amar Rabbi Yechanan, it says in Vayishlach, right before the Torah goes into much greater detail how the Jewish people were established. The Torah quickly goes through other nations, and then over there we're speaking about the descendants of Esav, and it says Ela b'nei Seir ha'chayri. These are the descendants of Seir, the Chayri, that are Yoshvei Haaretz, that they inhabit the land. And here the Gemara is asking as almost a cynical question, like the Torah has to write that people inhabit the land. Yeah, where else can people inhabit? Is there any other option? Do people live on Mars for the Torah to have to say no? Yoshvei haaretz. Then it was completely out of the question. Ella shahayu b'kiyim b'yeshuva shalaretz. That the Bnei Seir, they were expertise in agriculture. What's that expertise? Shahayu oimrim, they had the knowledge to know meloi kanazeh. This rod length of land, this little patch of land, they would know is good, especially to plant a kazayas, to plant zaysim, not a kazayas, a zayas. Boy, kind of said that this patch of land, even if it was small patches, they knew somehow from signs, from their signs, this is good to plant a gefanim. Boy, kind of says lita'enim. Furthermore, the reason why they're called chayri, the word chayri comes from the word reyach. Wow. And how did they know that? They would smell the land, and they had a chush from their scent, from the smell. This land is good for this land is good for that. Furthermore, the Gemara continues that the nation that are called the Chivites, why are they called Chivis? Amar Rav Papa, that they, through tasting the earth, the way snakes, Chivya is a snake, taste the earth, they knew what the earth is good for planting. They were the ones, before the Bnei Esav expelled them out, they were the ones that shared this knowledge about the 1.5 tefach. Thus, if you don't want to mingle two different seeds, then one has to be distant from the other 3 tefachim. So we heard it from them. And the fact that the Torah calls them the Yoshvei Haaretz, giving credibility to their knowledge, that's hinting to us that we paskin halachis based on information, based on knowledge given to us, whether we got it from our generation or from when the Chivis came about until when the Gemara was written. No one had a better science. No one had a better technology. So we rely that in the times of old, when we were taught these rules, okay, so that's Asher Gavru L'Shleinim. And the Torah is telling us, don't change it. Accept it. Gewaltig. Okay.
Rabbi, is Rabbi Bar Abba saying these psukim like as this is proof that we know from these psukim, or it's like it's an asmachta?
It's an emes. It's an emes. Yeah. Now another detail regarding why they are called chayrim, bnei chayri, not related to our Gemara. This is also to answer that you see. This is not a shenemara proof. This is just a certain concept that we lean it on a pasuk. Chayri can have a complete different meaning, which makes it not related to our topic. Rabbi Yaakov Amar, not the Rabbi Yaakov is the one that says that Chayri means that being that the Bnei Esav conquered their lands, so Chayri shenasu Bnei Chayrin Mineschayim. They owned a lot of property. The Bnei Esav came in there and they drove them out, so they became free of their property. That's the minhag of all governments. They like to make us free from our properties. And they taka that Bnei Esav succeeded. They became chayrim. So they're called Bnei Chayri. Okay, and therefore again, the Gemara is trying to point out this is not the only meaning of the pasuk, but this is one way of understanding it. That's a remez in the Torah to the rule that when the Chachamim learn something from Chachma Yom Ha'So'elam or from Yidden, but not from Torah Misinai, milsahi. Milsa to the point that we are building halachas of Torah Shebaal Peh based on their determination. And now let's go into more details regarding the laws of Kalayim itself. Omar Avasi, Aruga, when the Mishnah is speaking about the patch, again, there's a patch. The Mishnah says 6 by 6 tfachim, in which you can plant 5 different types of seeds. It's toichavav. A patch needs to have a walkway around, and everyone had a walkway around the patch. Don't think that the walkway is part of the 6 by 6. Let's talk it out by heart. You can still go back and look at the picture in Ashi and Daf Peidalad Amud Beis. If the walkway was 1 tefach, so if the walkway is included in the 6 by 6, but the outermost tefach of both sides are not being used to plant, they're left fallow for people to walk. So you're only beginning to plant on 5 by 5. If you take one row and another row, and then you put one dot in the center, you're not going to have 3 tfachim from the center to either direction. You're going to have less than that. So it must be the 6 by 6 means that chutz migvuleha, there is taka walkway, and within the walkway from one end, if you're going right left, top bottom, mizrach ma'ariv tzaf and darim. Look in the picture in Rashi. It's from the edge of one row to the other row. there has to be the 6 tefachim. The inner edge are 6 tefachim. But Mela, when you put one in this dot in the center, you have the 3 tefachim. And indeed, we learned that the Felice in the Braisa, that the aruga that Chazal speak about in Kilayim, toicha shisha. And now the next question is, how wide was the walkway? Lamai nafkamina. According to some opinions, no nafkamina. According to Rav, no nafkamina, as we'll see in a moment. But as the sugi will develop on Daf Pehei Amid Beis, according to others, huge nafkamina. So says, Bikama shisha, come on. How wide is the walkway? Answers, well, that's clear. Kedetnan. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer. Rabbi Yehuda is not talking about vegetable patches. It's good to chapt is good. Rabbi Yehuda is speaking about fields. Also, if you have a field of wheat, you have another adjacent field of barley, you got the same issue of kilei zeroim. But as we'll see, being that fields are larger, and especially since people had a unique way of planting at the edges of their fields, that they wouldn't plant the entire edge, but they would make some sort of triangular. That means that the rows would become a little bit shorter and shorter and at the edge. Ubemela, there was a very clear, distinct demarcation that separated one field from the other. This Mishnah is not even talking about planting one field near the other. That's much less problematic because there is no marasayin. Rabbi Yehuda is speaking about someone who in middle of the field makes a furrow, and he wants to plant one row of a different type of a seed in middle of the field. What separates that row from the sides? The fact that there is a furrow separating it. There was something in the earth that he made that separated it.
What's a furrow?
Furrow means a charitza in the ground. There's a line in the ground. And how, so Rabbi Yehuda holds that if this line is wide enough, so when you look at this field, even though it's one field, it belongs to one person, and you have wheat, but in the middle, there is a line of something else. Since it's separated by this furrow, it's not only a row. Row, we learned you need to have the 3 tefachim. A furrow means there's a charitz in the ground. So it addresses the maras ayin issue. It makes it more discernible, like the Rashi says, there's a heker. We don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, but we're just borrowing his concept. Rabbi Yehuda says that if the furrow is as wide as your soul, which is really a tefach of a furrow separating this row from its adjacent row that is used for another species is good enough of a hekeda. We do not paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that making a furrow of a tefach is good enough, but the fact that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that a tefach is of significance, the Gemara is linking it to the width of the walkway, the width all the way around, that the walkways around patches, this is not a furrow. The walkway means pashut that they left it fallow. So the gardener that has to come to water, he doesn't have to walk on top or through the vegetables, he's able to walk around them. Okay. Where did Rabbi Yehuda get it from? Because it says in Ekev that the hishkisa beraglecha, right, that you will water your lands, right? Now beraglecha is mamish superfluous. You'll water, of course, when you water land in those days, you walked near it. You didn't have the sprinkler systems. Beraglecha kigan hayarik, the way you water a vegetable patch. So the reason why the Torah adds the words beraglecha is to be merames ma regel tefach af gvul nami tefach. This is just the remez of Rabbi Yehuda, and our Gemara is suggesting, based on the concept that you see that a proper area furrow was a tefach, the walkways should also be a tefach wide, which means that if I have 2 patches, one adjacent the other, by default, how much space will I have between the row of seeds from one and the other? 2 tefachim, because each patch, that's the minhag, each patch had a walkway. Now, enachanami, 2 tefachim are not enough. They're not enough as far as the mingling is concerned. But as we'll see, it might be enough to make a heker. In the same patch, there's no heker. That's why the Mishnah says, the way we have the picture on Rashi, 2 tefachim will never be enough. It's one patch. Even though you're planting each row on a different angle, right? So they're right in the left parallel, the top and the bottom parallel, but nevertheless, you don't have this tefach heter or two tefachim heter. Between patches, it might be better, but not Rav. We're not beginning with that. So hold this concept of the walkway for Daf Pei Hei Amud Beis. Now, there's a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel how to understand the Mishnah. The Mishnah is only speaking about one patch. If you have one patch, you know how much? You can plant 5 different types. Now, what patch is the Mishnah talking about? Let me just verbalize the obvious question. If you have a larger piece of land and you divide it into various patches, so one patch is in between other patches, could you still plant the way the Mishnah described, planting 5 types in each patch? Why maybe not? Because let's go with the walkway of a tefach. Just look inside the picture we have in Rashi, right? Look inside the center patch. The center patch from all the directions has a shachan. If you're going to plant the entire row, even only one row, but at the periphery, at the edge of one patch with zerayim, and then you're going to plant the closest parallel, we don't care about perpendicular, but parallel row of the patch above, weighted with a row of another type of vegetables, even though each row has a tefach, so you have 2 tefachim in between, but it's only 2 tefachim, it's not 3 tefachim. So if you have a patch amongst other patches, you won't be able to plant it the way the Mishnah described. And so holds Rav. So why is the Mishnah telling you can plant 5 types in one patch the way we described? The Mishnah is only speaking about a person that has only one patch. If you have one patch and you want to chaparain and plant over there 5 different types, you can do so. Let's read inside the Rav, right? 4 or 5 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Omar Rav, that our Mishnah is only speaking about a aruga bechurva. Churva means that all their land around it is a churban. Not a churban, it's fallow. Shaninu. Because if you would have, like the picture in Rashi, guys, Tosfos has a whole different way of looking. Let's follow Gemara Rashi. Then again, the parallel rows would be within 3 tefachim, which is awesome. Asks the Gemara, why is Rav telling you that if indeed you have many patches together, you cannot use each patch for 5 types? There is a solution, and let me speak it out by heart. It's called staggered. Staggered means Mokoim Karana is the way Rashi teaches. So here again, even in my Gemara, the picture is good enough to clearly understand what we're talking about. And Rashi made this picture. Rashi wrote Kozeh, which means that Rashi made these diagrams. Instead of using, guys, look in the middle, look inside the middle patch. So I'm going to just be taking the top row of the middle patch and look at the lowest row of the top patch, all in the center. If each row will be filled from one corner to the other, then indeed the rows will be within 3 tefachim. But if the middle patches row, I'm speaking about the one on the top row that's going from right to left, right from Darim to Tzafin, only goes on 50% of Darim to Tzafin. It's only half of the row. And then on the top center column, the top one, you only begin planting from the left, from Darim to Tzafin, the left side of the row. The edges being close to each other, I don't care, it's perpendicular. I don't care. But here you have a solution, and you can make that solution in the entire patch, as Rashi points out, in where there will never be a shtickle of 2 parallel rows. That's the key. I don't care about perpendicular, but there will never be any part of any parallel rows that are within, that are less than 3 tefachim. So why did Rav Zet sign the Mishnah that it's only ba'aruga b'churva? Why? Let the Rav just clarify that if you have many patches, plant it staggered. Why did everyone chop over here? If you have a picture, you'll understand. If people are not understanding it, first of all, that's because I lack a koyach of explaining it better. But if you see this illustration, it's very clear how to stagger it in a way.
Can you show your picture, Rabbi? Can you show your picture, please?
Everyone has it. Everyone has it because it's in Rashi. Rashi painted. It's in the Rashi, which is inside the Amud, towards the not the one on the bottom, the one before the bottom, the big 9 patches together. Okay, so Amri Beirav Mishmei Derav. So we heard from the yeshiva, from the Talmidei Rav, in the name of the teacher. You know why we cannot do that? Because the Mishnah is speaking about someone that is mamali asakaronis. That was their initial answer. No, we're not speaking about someone that's only going to use not even a whole row. The Mishnah that's thinking someone who's using the entire row. If you use the entire row, then you can't have it if it's an aruga bein arugas. But the Gemara didn't understand what that means. Nachamo, why the Mishnah was not clear. The Mishnah didn't speak about whether the patch is amongst other patches or not. We try not to limit the case of the Mishnah. I get it. Rav holds that if you will plant the entire line, the entire row, then if it's between patches, right, aside of the periphery ones, it's going to be within 3 tvachim. Beseder. So let the Rav say, if you're going to plant the entire row, then you can't if it's in between patches. But if you plant it staggered, then you could. You know, the words, that's the way Rashi teaches these words. The lizre ma'aboy means let Rav allow for you to use even the abroi, even the outermost periphery of each patch for planting, and each row a different seed. Elama, let Rav just limit that if you do so, don't fill it up. Don't fill it up means don't fill up the inside of the patch. That's no way. Don't go from edge to edge. Do it staggered. Daf pehei amid base. So the Gemara clarifies, Rav would not even allow staggered. Do you know why? Top line, you have to have common sense. You know, you can put certain rules into place, but then you have to know how people will behave under those rules. Mamash, I'm just bringing all this back to the debate that we're having right now about opening and not opening right away. What's the fear? The fear is, if everyone follows the rules, if people are only going to use half of the road, they're going to plant staggered, taka, you won't have kalayim. But to tell a person who owns land and you need the land to plant, you need it to plant. So you think everyone is going to be that medagdek? And I felt that people won't be that medagdek. Maybe the first guy will plant only, they'll stagger it. And then the next time they'll plant, they won't stagger it that much. And don't forget, at the end of the day, there is a 2 tefach walkway between one patch and the other. Okay, 6 feet, 8 feet, 5 feet, who cares? All these questions. I felt that the only time you can use the patch the way the Mishnah says, it's only if it's in between a churvet. That means there's nothing around any direction. But why indeed does Rav say that? Did we not learn clearly a Mishnah in Kalayim that when you have a field next to each other, even more, if you have a field near a vegetable patch next to a field, that's what the Mishnah is talking about, we are allowed to use each one space full because there is a hecker. There is a hecker. When people look at it, they see it's 2 different patches. They see it's 2 different fields. Now, again, the Mishnah in Kalaim is not speaking about a vegetable patch neighboring another vegetable patch. Patches, my friends, are much smaller. Field is much larger. But the questionnaire said it should all be the same. At the Gemara, at the end of the top line, Roish Toir Yarak means the end or the tip of a row of vegetables. What's the meaning of the tip of the row? So look inside the Rashi, you see the triangular, or you can just picture a triangular. The meaning was not by a patch, by a field, that when you planted a field, you wouldn't plant the field as a box. When you came to all of the edges of the field, you would make the rows, each one progressively shorter, right? So if you used the whole mile, then you went less and less, and at the end, you only used a little bit. That was the way that they planted at the edges of the fields. The advantage of doing so, for other reasons, but for Hilchas Kalayim, is that imagine if you have a triangular going into a triangular, or a triangular going into even a straight line, it clearly demarks these are different areas. When you go on an airplane today, you look down, you see patches. Even if you look here, if they're not planted rows, mamash going into each other, it's better than what Rabbi Yehuda said on Amud Aleph, that there's simply one charitz, one furrow fallow, one furrow which you don't plant in. It's much better than that. The form is different. And because of that, if you have a vegetable patch neighboring a field, here you plant vegetables, and in the field you're planting grain, but it's not about the type of seed, it's about the size, right? The halachic size of a soda is around 10.5 amas, minimal by 10.5 amas. 10.5 amas. We're saying over here that a vegetable patch was normally 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, with the walkway. It's much, much smaller. Mutter. Why is it mutter? Even though the edges of one row is within the 3 tvachim, each Each type of seed does not have its own 1.5 tefach because shenira soif sada. So his question is, why wouldn't the walkway be just as good as the Rosh Toir? True, it's not that you're making a triangular, but you have a two tefachim. So when you look at patches, Taka, think about it, you'll see separate patches. Why isn't that good enough of a heket? So the Gemara says, because the Rav holds, ein Rosh Toir ba'aruga. When you have a field neighboring a field, or even a field and a patch, there, being that to begin with, a field is much bigger, and it ends with this Rosh Toir. So therefore, it's more discernible. There's a greater heket that it's two different areas. When it comes to vegetable patches, simply by the fact that they're smaller to begin with, and the fact that every vegetable patch, you're already planting different seeds. Like some people sent me yesterday, before we remembered that ein kiles roim b'chutzlaretz, people are saying, well, this is what I have in my backyard. It looks mixed. It doesn't look as organized as a field. The vegetable patch, maybe when you plant them so that then the leaves go out and one leaf goes out in one direction, the other leaf goes out in another. It looks more mixed. So Rav holds, the two tefach of walkway is not good enough. Shmuel, the way we will learn, agrees that ein rosh, Shmuel holds that ein rosh toir ba'aruga. Shmuel agrees that the heter of the Mishnah Kalaim that we just learned here in Amid Beis, Kalaim Pei Gimel, Mishnah Gimel, that rosh toir is a heker, is only between field and field or field and garden, not between garden and garden, not between aruga and aruga. Elamah Shmuel holds that if you plant it staggered, people will obey the rules. And you don't have to be choishish like we have in the top line that Shema Yamale Asakaronis. So Shmuel Amar, Aruga ben Aruga Sheninu. Our Mishnah is speaking about patches in between patches. Because you only have a 2 tefach walkway. So he says, Enechanami. If you plant a whole row, it will be Yosef. The Mishnah will only allow it b'noita shura lakan v'shura lakan. Just to point out, one of the reasons why Tosfos and other Rishonim learned the Gemara completely differently is because the Gemara changes the way it says staggered, L'shitas Rashi, and Amud Aleph, staggered meant makim karanis. Then we had on the bottom line, ba'avroi, megavoi. Now Shmuel's using the words bekan or bekan, which is not the end of the world because it's 2 different Amiroim. They use different expressions. But I'm saying, anyways, we learn Gemara Rashi that Shmuel holds that when it's aruga bein arugas, you have to plant it staggered. People are going to obey the rules. People know that if it's 3 tfachim, if you don't have the 3 tfachim, then it's a kilei zeroim. And even l'shitas Rashi, if you didn't plant them together, it's midrabanan. So what? It's an isur midrabanan the Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Amarullah. Now, guys, we're going to come back to Rav and Shmuel when we're going to learn, God willing, the last sheet of Rabbi Yechanan. But before that, let's go Allah say it. Amarullah. In Marava and Eretz Yisrael, they asked the following inquiry: If Kia telem echad al penei kulamahu, if a person tears open the furrow across the entire center and across the entire patch, Chevre Shleima Vibista before Namad Aleph takes time to chaptis. Rabbi Yehuda was not speaking about in the Mishnah people planting in the furrow. Rabbi Yehuda was speaking about a person planting a row. What's mafsik this row from the neighboring rows is a furrow of 1 tefach. Here, Ula is speaking about something else. You have even a vegetable patch, not a field. And you dig a furrow, not only it's 1 tefach wide, it's 1 tefach deep. Can you plant in that row another species? You won't have between that row and the parallel rows 3 tefachim. Okay, but by the fact that you planted it in the furrow, maybe that's a heker. That was the boy. Yeah? So machlokes, not like many other things. Amarab sheishes, no, ba irvuv. No, this is called a intermingling. If you planted the center, you can't plant the side rows. If you planted the side rows, you can't do that. Don't forget the case in the Mishnah was you planted 1 seed in mamish in the center. But if you're planting a whole shoot in the center, just because you planted it in a furrow, even though the furrow is a tefach deep, no, it's still called mingling. However, Rav Asi says no, meaning it is permitted. Now the kasha will be an shitas Ravasi. Eisvei Ravino to Ravashi steht in a Mishnah that Hanitea shtei shurais shel kishuyim. What are we talking about? This is very important. Here we are speaking about you planting seeds in a field. And we're speaking about you planting rows, right, that are not separated 3 tefachim one from the other. Yes, that in between different types, you made one furrow. And here again, we're speaking about a field. So you have a field, you're planting barley, and then you make a furrow, and then on the other side of the charitz, not in the charitz, on the other side of the charitz, you plant another type. So look at the logic. The more of the other type you plant, the better it is. Because then the heked, you see clearly, okay, here it's like more organized. This is one type. There is a demarker, there is a charitz, there's a furrow, and then there's another type. If you only plant one row of another type, then it looks like you made a mishmash, you made a cholent. You understand? So let's read it inside. If in this field, when you made a furrow to separate, and then on the other side of the furrow, where you don't have the 3 tefachim, you planted 2 rows of cucumbers, or 2 rows of diluyim, of gourds, or 2 rows of pula mitzri, and we'll see why the Mishnah dafka uses these types. There's something unique about them. Then mutter. Look inside Rashi, around 10 lines under the Gemara. 10 lines under the Gemara. It's almost towards the end of the top half. Mutter sagt Rashi, the shtei shurois chashivi lemeheve sodde lenafshayu. As we learned above, don't confuse vegetable patches and fields, because even though you're only planting 2 rows, but it's not a 6 tefach row or a 5.8 tefach row. You're not going from edge to here. You're speaking about a field. Every row is at least 10.5 amos or more. So if you're planting not 1 row but 2 row, then it already looks like a separate field. And what does everyone agree to? That if it's from one field to the other, that's already there's a heker. Back inside the Mishnah. But if you only planted 1 row is only 1 row. It doesn't look like a field for itself. But only 1 row. The field is of barley, is of wheat, whatever. And you're making now another type. Only 1 row of cucumbers, or only 1 row of diluyim, or only 1 row of pula mitzri. Here it is asur. Now, what do we see over here? That if it's not a separate field, even though you have this furrow, and you're planting it on the other side of it, it's even better. It's further away. It's not enough. The only time we won't subscribe to the need of a tefach and a half each, 3 tefachim, is if it's a separate sada. Here in MERCAVA, they were speaking about a vegetable patch, which is not a field. So how can he say that you are allowed to do it? So it answers the Gemara that the Mishnah and Kalayim didn't speak about any type. They dafke gave the types that they gave. Gavaldik. Shane Hache, really, it's Hassan, because the answer is regarding the Mishnah that we just quoted. That the Mishnah is different, because the Ike Sheracha, there is a entanglement, as Rashi says, that Zimoiroi Sehen Aruchais. We're speaking about the cucumbers, we're speaking about gourds, and we're speaking about pula mitzri, Egyptian beans, that the vines of these types are unusually long. If you have a vegetable patch, look at it. Look how different Hashem made the world. Every leaf is different. So those leaves and vines are very large, they're very long, so they mamish intermingle. So since they physically know what you have on this side will intermingle with the other side, so if it's 2 fields, then you're good. What makes a field? The side of the size of it. 2 rows or more. 1 row is nished. But if you don't have but that's only because they physically intermingle. But we are arguing that when they asked him the marava, it's taka, not this type. It's other types of vegetables, other types of herbs. There's moiroi saying they're vines. Maybe it also means leaves. Maybe only vines. They're not that unusually long. Maybe since you're planting it in the charitz, again, it's not considered. There is a heked enough, and therefore it's permitted. Now comes the bomb, the chiddush. So you have a Mishnah. We're speaking now about an Amoira. When you learn the Mishnah, again, even though the Mishnah never said explicitly that the 5th in the center is only a dot, but that's the way we learn it. That's the way Rashi taught the Mishnah. Why does it have to be a dot? Because the one in the middle has to be 3 tefachim away from each and every other row. So you can only plant a dot. You can't make it, you can't extend it to the width, you can't extend it to the length. Says Rabbi Yochanan, no. Now that we established the Hekeda, let me first say it by heart. If you have a vegetable patch of 6 tefachim, without the walkway, excluding the walkway 6 by 6, and on each edge you plant almost from one corner to the other, not completely, but almost an entire row. So you have 4 types. Each row can be from a different type. Perpendicular, we don't care. And the parallels, you're having 6, you have plenty in the middle. Says the Mishnah, says Rabbi Yochanan, you may plant almost the entire center. Pack it in. How can you pack it in? Make a circle inside this box. Make a circle inside the box. Now, that's going to give you from the widest part or the tallest part of the circle from one edge to the other, only 5 tvachim, and you can plant the entire circle. Hold on, if you plant the entire circle, you hear Chevra, the circle part is mamash going to be touching the row part at the extremities. Not a problem. How is it not a problem? Because when you plant in rows and you plant a circle, just like we had before the concept of the triangular, Rabbi Yochanan does apply this concept even by a vegetable patch, since the form of the ground, the Seder al haaretz, is different. That in itself makes it discernible, even though the circle is in the square. If you can just imagine that. So you see a row, the rows and the peripheries on the edges are straight, gleich, kav. In the center, you have a circle. That's the best Hekeda. Let's read it inside. Now again, does Rabbi Yochanan, he's not arguing with the Mishnah. L'chora, you can touch Rabbi Yochanan's option in the Mishnah. The words in the Mishnah is dalad dalad ruchay saruga. Rabbi Yochanan is not arguing with that. A row on each ruach, on each edge. And then when the Mishnah says the words va'achas be'emsa, achas means another type. So Rashi gave you a dot. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, the achas can mean an entire circle. Oy gewalt. Let's read it inside. Oh no, Rabbi Yochanan. That haroitz kol ginasa yorak. You have these patches, and you have a patch, and you want to fill it up. Oisa aruga shisha shisha, like we said in the Mishnah. And on every edge, you plant a row, almost from end to end. You have to leave a little bit out. It should never become parallel. And v'oigel b'chamisha, make a circle that if you are going to measure the widest part of any side from one edge of the other edge of a circle, it's going to be 5 because you want to fill it in. You don't want it to overlap, but it can go mamish from edge to edge. Means not only do you fill up the circle, but the lines, the rows can also go. Says the Gemara, hold on. It sounds that Rabbi Yochanan is telling you that if you have many such patches, right? If you have a large piece of land, you can plant all of the land. Rabbi Yochanan's solution is a lot better than Rashi in the Mishnah, than the way we initially understood the Mishnah. There you are losing almost all of it. You only have one row, and one dot in the middle. So Taka, he's giving you a solution how to fill up a lot more of a patch. But it sounded from Rabbi Yochanan when you say Lamalois kol ginasai, your gina is much more than 6 by 6. He's saying divide it into 6 by 6s. But what about Beni Ubeni? What about the walkway? The walkways will still be empty. It's still better than the Mishnah. But it doesn't sound that that's what Rabbi Yochanan meant. So first of all, Amri Devei Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yochanan Taka was not speaking about the walkways. And Chanami, b'machriv bein habinayim, that you have to leave the walkways fallow. But he gives you a lot more of each patch, a lot more, not mamash all of it, but a lot more than it. Rashi says, no, you can use all of your land because the walkways, my friend, are fallow, parallel to the row. So if your walkways, when you're facing it is going from right to left, then make in this 2 tefach double walkway, make lines from top to bottom. As long as you will make perpendicular little rows, gavaldik, in the walkway, weiter you can do it. Now you're going to have to leave in between every little row 3 tvachim, in a chanami. but you even can figure out how to use the walkway as well. Ravashi Amar, im chassis, right? If the perimeter of these walkways are in one direction, right, vertical, zoid erev, then plant in the walkways little lines, as long as they are 3 tvachim away from the other, but you have many lines that are erev, that are going to be horizontal. Erev, if the walkways are erev, zoidim chassis. Bottom line is, he meant not only to pack up the patches, but to pack up the walkways in between the patches. Eis Ravashi says in a brayso, avoid the Zajac, the work area for vegetables that are being planted with other vegetables. Avoid the Zajac biyarak is biyarak acher, like we had in the Mishnah, but the brayso is a little bit more articulate. Is in shisha tvachim, that you got to use 5 tvachim. The brayso means, 6 tvachim, but you have to fill in 4 or 5 species, because we're speaking about people that they want to plant many things. You want to plant, you have 5, you need 6, which is good, which is what the Mishnah says. But now listen to these words. And it's going to look like a square board. In other words, your patch, square means it's going to be, the lines are either going chassis or erev. They're going north, mizrach ma'ariv or tzaf and darim.
Rabbi, is that the picture below?
Is that the picture below? 1 second, Danny. Which picture below are we talking about? I don't think there's a picture. No, it's the picture in the Mishnah. I don't have it.
No, it's below in the Rashi.
By my Gemara, Daniel, there's no Rashi. There's no pictures on Rashi, not on Pei Hey Amad Beis, not on Pei Vav Amad Aleph. But you know what it means? It means the picture in Rashi in the Mishnah. See, the picture in Rashi in the Mishnah, even though the center is circular, but that's not a circle and it's not a row. It's just one seed. It's one seed in the center. It means it's all squares. And in other words, the Gemara fears is kitavlo hudashari, only if it looks like a square board, then it is permissible. Halafachi, it's asr. You got a problem. Again, the way I understand the Gemara, you don't have this problem from the Mishnah, because the Mishnah never used the words ketavlo mirubas. So l'choura, you can teach Rabbi Yechanan's solution in the Mishnah. But you cannot teach Rabbi Yechanan's solution in the brayso when he's speaking about making a circle. When you look at these patches, they don't look like a tabla merubas. So answers the Gemara, and this l'chura, the way I understand, will not go well with Ravashi. But Hassan, la'akula bakul achrina. Yes, the brayso that does not allow you to fill a circle in the square. You know why the brayso doesn't allow it? Because Leshitas Rabbi Yechanan, Leshita de Brayso, he argues with Rav and with Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel held that the heter we have in the Mishnah in Kalayim, the one that we had all the way on top of Pehei Amad Beis, was only in between fields, called the Rosh Toir, or in between a field and a vegetable patch. But in between 2 vegetable patches, since they're much smaller, it looks more intermingled. 2 tfachim are not enough. So even Shmuel, that explained our Mishnah, that it's aruga bein arugas, it's only staggered. Rabbi Yechanan holds you don't have to stagger them. You don't have to stagger them. If you have many vegetable patches, one adjacent to the other, the walkway, which each one has a 1 tefach walkway, which means in between parallel rows you have 2 tefachim, that is just as good as a heter as the words in the Mishnah of Rosh Toir. But, here's the but. If you're going to put a circle in the center, then it's going to look like afamishungs. That's the way I understand the Gemara. So if you want to plant one, you have many patches, then we don't advise you to fill up with a circle, or to word it differently, if you want to be allowed to plant aruga bein arugais, then you can do it the way Rabbi Yechanan says, with a circle in the center. Even he's moida, because then you're going to lose the heter of Rosh Toir hayotzim iman. So if you only have one vegetable patch and you're not concerned with neighboring vegetable patches, so here Rabbi Yechanan's answer to you is make each row on each edge, and don't put one seed in the center. Make a circle in the center. But you understand that once you do that, then you cannot plant one patch near the other. Because imagine when you think about how it would look. I don't have a picture here. When you would look at a piece of property, and there's circles and there's lines and there's one near the other, it looks like one big cholent. And here Rabbi Yochanan is moide to Rav and Shmuel that we don't say the heter of a rosh shtoir between one vegetable batch and the other. But if you don't have one patch in between other patches, if you have a patch bein achurva, the way Rav says, so then Rabbi Yochanan says, if I'm not worried about neighboring patches, then the Mishnah solution isn't only dafka to plant one little seed in the center. You can make a circle in the center, because when you look at that patch, the form of a circle is different. Is the opposite. You know, there's a square. Are you a square? Are you a circle? It's other zeh or zeh. And since there is a heked, Rabbi Yochanan is matirit. That's the sugya of Kalayim. And Emetz Hashem, tomorrow's daf, which is going to continue in the Pedic of Amar Rabbi Akiva, different dinim of Minayin Shenemar. So the Mishnah will give you various dinim, but the first din of Pileta Shichva Zera by Yom HaShlishi, that leads us into the beautiful sugya of Matan Torah, much more to be continued.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Gemara is
Thank
not
you.
the way the art school teaches the Gemara. It
Thank
could be,
you.
but that's the way it made sense to me. The only problem I have with the way I learned is that if that's the case, it sounds like that that the final answer doesn't go together with Rav Ashi's answer, which is not ideal. Because
We on for tonight, Rabbi? Are we on?
yeah. So very good, thank you. So tonight, Emetz Hashem at 8:30, the goal is to learn Daf Peiches. We're going staggered, mamash staggered, and tomorrow morning we're going to learn Daf Peivav. So like this Thursday morning, God willing, we'll be able to learn Daf Peites, which is really
8:30.
great. That will be great.
I expect a new from Danny at 8:45.
No.
I got you.
Good.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
So tonight is at
Thank you, Rabbi.
8:30, you said? 8:30 or 8:45?
8:30. Listen, I finished mine at 8:30.
Okay, good. Baruch Hashem.
Okay.
I'll
Thank
set
you.
my alarm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.